done in the open liberal economic platform. We were the first country to liberalize in this part of the world. Now, we are now taking the next step to give the leadership to that region by introducing new concept of export orientation. The traditional manufacturing concept had a distinctly two different things. One, you got to import something, transform it to a product, and then export it, essentially entailing a value addition. Secondly, you got to manufacture in Sri Lanka and get it exported from Sri Lanka. Those are the two specific elements which we had in our traditional export processing concept. What we are trying to do today is to move away from that concept and explore the possibility of creating more and more export orientation by synergizing the complementarities and the strengths prevalent within the region. It also trying to get the advantage. I'm only talking about the apparel industry because I know only a bit about apparel industry. It also gives you an advantage of the capacities that you have created in the human resources during the last 4 decades and try to see the possibility of using that for the upliftment of the export industry. I think those are the two specific advantages that we are going to create under the new hub. Then, the rationale for introduction of that policy is, I think, very well known. I don't think I should dwell on that, but I will just say it is within the general export load growth strategy and the need to attract foreign direct investment by harnessing the advantages of logistics, advantages of infrastructure, advantages of skill and knowledge that we have, and thirdly, our strategic geographic location. All those 4 elements are built into this particular piece of legislation. And it is on that basis the new environment is being created to attract new models of businesses that are expected to be established in this country. It will be available for existing enterprises to set up new enterprises by using their capabilities, or new enterprises, either totally new or 100% foreign owned or joint venture basis. So it's a situation that can be exploited by all. Let me take you through a few elements relating to the hub. The hub activities identified can be divided into 2 specific platforms. One, activities which are involved in the physical movement of goods, either this way or that way. Second, activities which are purely enhanced human resource-based activities which will give the added value to the total supply chain. Those are the 2 specific areas that have been covered. So let me take one by one on the first sector. There are 3 specific areas that have been given under the Hub Act where the physical movement of goods are given. First one is the entrepôt trade. You will be surprised to hear, up until the introduction of Hub law, textile and apparel clothing would not have been able to be exported under entrepôt system, meaning that you can't import a finished product from another country, prepare it to the market by relabeling, packing, or pick and pack basis, send it back. That was not possible. What we did was, wherever there was a need, we did it on a discretionary basis by tinkering the system and allowing things to happen that way. But that will not create the conducive environment. Therefore, that restriction is now removed. Any company who is a regional player in this part of the world will now be able to get the product manufactured as a low-cost advantage country bring it over to here, Sri Lanka, do the value addition which are not possible in those countries, and export it back, no questions asked, you can do it. And there is no requirement to ensure that there is a transformation of input into a finished product. In other words, I think the logistic people will understand. You import it with some particular HS code, and you can export it back with the same HS code, there's no issue. And that's the big advantage that you have. Secondly, the entrepôt trade also, we have tinkered with the innovative thinking. Generally, entrepôt trade does not permit high value addition process. But the new hub regulation in Sri Lanka gives the facility to do it, where your manufacturing can also be undertaken by importing input and converting it to a finished product. What's the difference? The difference is you're totally sanitized from the distortions that are prevalent in the market, where you pay indirect taxes. There is a serious human intervention. When the things are there, the taxes are there, custom will come, the other fellow will come, this will come, valuation question will arise. All those questions will be done away with. There will be no physical verification either. And you import it, you export it. And you are totally sanitized. I use the word sanitized from all those regulatory requirements. That's the second manufacturing, traditional manufacturing process that could be undertaken on the hub. The second, the situation where the transshipment business. Of course, Sri Lanka has a good transshipment business, even today. But in reality, what has happened is those transshipments was done purely on the basis of logistic advantage. But here, with the new hub regulation, the companies who are well connected to the market would now be able to master all those relationships and get all those transshipment being done in an office located in Sri Lanka and manage everything. That is possible, and that's the second advantage that we have. The third area would be the logistics. I do not know how many people, who have had the opportunity of looking at the logistic cost in this country. You will be surprised the connectivity is one of the best in this part of the world, and that will give you the ability to deliver goods. And in fact, at the last panel discussion, somebody was talking about the speed to the market, and that is exactly what we are trying to offer. Now, all these three activities, you imagine today a brand or a retailer is having his distribution center in a high developed country and incurring heavy cost. We all must realize, whether we like it or not, the apparel manufacturing base is in this part of the world. We all know Sri Lanka, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan put together had reached a growth level of 58% during the last 4 years. That means the manufacturing base is here. That is when China was in a position to compete. And when China is going to phase out the manufacturing, that manufacturing will also have to come either to this part or to the African continent. So what we are trying to do is, before it is being shifted to the other, we are creating a situation where a retailer can now set up his DC here in Sri Lanka, get all the things manufactured in this part of the world, have it here, and deliver just in time, reducing inventory cost, human cost, and all the other costs related to the maintenance of distribution centers. And this is one area that we will be actually focusing on, enabling the increase of our exports component. Now, those are the three specific areas where the physical movement of goods are involved. Then take the case of activities which are not really involved in the physical movement of goods. One is the regional headquarters. We do have a best of the infrastructure, world-based communication systems, and our transactions, I think thanks to a number of our colleagues who is in the audience also, Sri Lanka is now entering into online export-import documentation system. In fact, the export-import documentation system, the export system will be operative from the end of, hopefully, the next month, and everyone would be able to export their goods on online basis, where you don't have to, there is no intervention of the customer or any other authority. When you create that type of conducive environment, minimizing the human intervention in the transaction process, it reduces your transaction cost. So therefore, a headquarter company would now be able to set up here and do your billing, financing, management, and all that. That type of environment is being created in this country under the new hub provision. The second area is actually what Gihan was saying at the previous panel, front-end services. Designing, prototype development, all those activities can be undertaken under the new hub. And the beauty is you don't have to locate it in a free port or in a bonded area. It can be anywhere provided there is no involvement of movement of goods. So in other words, the freedom is given to companies to engage in knowledge-based businesses in the metropolitan areas using the available infrastructure capacity while being treated as a hub company. And those are the areas that under the second category of activities that have been undertaken. So I think my colleague Alok, who is here, will have to now rethink or revisit his position, because I think we are going to offer the best of the environment within which these new business models can be undertaken. Though I elaborated only one or two, within those general headline activities, 5 activities, there are a large number of activities that could be undertaken, and I think it's the right time for us to revisit Sri Lanka and see the possibility of using this beautiful piece of legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Tolu. Thanks. Thank you. It's not very often that you see government legislation that actually reduces bureaucracy. So this is pretty good that we're actually seeing something like that. So let me start down there with Udina. If I could just ask each of you in the panel to introduce yourself and also share some thoughts on the importance of this region as the sourcing area, and how are your companies actually positioning yourselves in this area?
My responsibility is part of the apparel business at Brandix. If you look at our strategy and if you look at this region, we see a number of platforms. One is there's a labor arbitrage trade agreement play, as we call it. And there are countries in this region that still offers that opportunity, Bangladesh obviously being top of the list. The second platform that we look at is throughput-based, asset productivity-based. So if you look at through the entire supply chain, end-to-end productivity, there's a substantial opportunity. So if you look at this industry, and primarily it comes from a labor mindset, most of us run a single shift business. Most of us run our businesses at, say, or manufacturing supply chains at about 60% efficiency. So if you take effective productivity, we run at about 18-20% productivity. Few other industries would have survived at 80% capacity loss from a starting point of view. So there is substantial opportunity on a supply chain, throughput, cycle time, whatever you call it, productivity base. The third aspect is what Tuli touched upon that comes with the hub concept, is the knowledge services. Now, if you look at us as a business, we believe we don't have the capability at this moment of time to play in the knowledge services sector. What we know best is, and we always have this statement within us, we say we are very tangible people. We touch machines, we touch fabric, we touch a product, and it's a tangible game that we know. So we see opportunity taking this region because it's the based on the crop, etc. It's the second largest cotton producing region in the world. It's the second largest spinning capability in the world. If you look at the intellectual capability, if you look at the labor pool, if you look at the market size, there's a lot going for this region. So if you look at all of this as one pot, our business models, there are three models that we are working on. The first being what we call the labor arbitrage trade-back-based model. And we think it could play out maybe for the next 5 to 10 years. There is the second model, which is a supply chain productivity model, which can go on for much longer. And when we went into India, we set up a supply chain city, which was an end-to-end supply chain solution. And the third aspect, which we've been working on for probably the last 18 months and just embarking more seriously, is on the knowledge model. So be it in IT services, be it in product services, be it in big data analytics. And one of our sort of very new initiatives that we're launching in the next couple of months is a incubator, accelerator combined to drive entrepreneurship. So when Janie spoke of, you know, when you start off and under the Thatcher government, there was a lot of infrastructure support. There was risk capital available. We don't have risk capital in this region. Risk capital doesn't float because all funding is debt-based. The design product area is another aspect that we're looking at. So really the areas that both Janie touched on and Mike spoke of are two areas we're focusing on.
Great, thanks. Arun, you guys have been around for a while, the Hydromani Group, huh?
Yeah, a little while, yeah.
Yeah, for a little while. What's the Hydromani take on all this?
Well, I was looking into our history, and I think we became a regional company a little bit by accident. In 1983, we set up operations in Bangladesh, solely because we didn't have enough quota in Sri Lanka, so we had an opportunity to have access to that out of Bangladesh, and you know, come a long way since then. And I think it's a consistent theme has been established where, you know, Sri Lanka is really the knowledge center for our group, and you know, we see that it's becoming for the whole South Asian region as a whole. Whereas, you know, a lot of the pioneering concepts, be it in manufacturing, in the technologies that we adapt, and more recently in, say, sustainability and say setting up of green factories. It's all started here in Sri Lanka, and then, you know, we've obviously have limited population over here, so we're able to take a lot of those findings and the scale, and able to scale it up in Bangladesh. So that's been our primary model of growth, and we also see that from our customers. I think Alok's position is hub leader of the South for PVH for South Asia, but I think he's based in the wrong hub. He's based in Dhaka, where he's looking for office space in Colombo right now, if anyone has anything to rent. But honestly, we see that with many of our customers.
So he kicked you out, huh? Yeah.
Kurt, in terms of Sri Lanka is the place where people will still come to create. I mean, this, you know, one of the selling points we have is, you know, we have amazing centers of product excellence. We have amazing design talent, and you can see that from our customers. And, you know, this year's been a very challenging year in Bangladesh, where, you know, we've had hartals and you know, a lot of labor stoppages. But I think the customers have been a little happy that rather than having to you know, spend a few days in Dhaka and you know, a few hours in traffic, they moved all their meetings to Sri Lanka. I think Marks and Spencer have been very pleasantly surprised that, you know, they're coming to Sri Lanka for all their key meetings, and you know, it doesn't hurt that we're a nice island as well. So I think you know, that's something which you know, it's evolved, but we have to continue that. Whereas we offer, you know, the point of difference and innovation out of here, and if the customer needs scale or they need additional volume, then we should be able to provide that, especially with the duty hedge for Europe out of Bangladesh. So that's what we're finding at the moment.
I really like that term, come to create. That's a great way of thinking about Sri Lanka and about about the way people come here to design and to make stuff, and then you use Bangladesh to scale. That's a great way of thinking about it.
We have to create that atmosphere for creativity. To keep doing that among all of us.
And I'm also glad that you said the reason you went to Bangladesh is for quota originally. So I'm sure if Anil was here, it would just be all about margin pressure. You know, so sorry, I couldn't resist.
True.
So anyways, good, thanks. Now, Alok, you're on the other end of it. You're the regional manager, the hub manager for PVH. Obviously, you're based in the wrong city, according to Arun.
Tell my boss that also.
Yeah, well, I imagine you'd want to be here too. I would want to be here too. So tell us your perspective on that as on the other end of it as a buyer, as somebody who's actually producing out here.
Okay, so firstly, I'd like to clarify, this is my original home. I lived here in the 80s with Mast, and then I lived here for another 5 years with Macy's. And I'd love to come back to this hub. So, you know...
So what did you do to get exiled?
Yeah, now see, I'm outnumbered. I have 2 of the panelists picking on me, and one of them threw me out of his office. I mean, I'm like, and I'm supposed to be the customer. This is not the way you treat a customer.
No,
right?
it's not. I think...
So I'm new to PVH 3 months, but prior to that was with Tommy Hilfiger, which is part of the same family, and I've lived and worked in this region. As you all say, I mean, I'm in the wrong place. But actually, let me tell you, even though I don't like, I hope nobody from Bangladesh here, but I mean, Dhaka is, you know, traffic is not bad. They're building some highways. I mean, but I need to be aware, in some ways, our factories are the weakest. I don't have to spend that much time in Sri Lanka because the vendors here are so strong, they don't need the support that we need to give them in other parts of this region. And so that's really a compliment. Our vendors here, and there are very few of them, are innovative, they understand timeliness, they understand quality, and we really work with our vendors here almost like complete partners. They make the goods, they ship the goods, pretty much they inspect the goods themselves. I mean, they own them. So, I mean, I don't have to tell anybody in the audience here the strengths of this region, of particularly Sri Lanka. The other countries that I see, I mean, each country has its own strength. India, I saw some presentations, they plan to be the next China. I think they're far away from that. But India has some great potential in terms of creativity. The industry is extremely fragmented and very few large players. I was telling Udena earlier that when I visited the apparel park, I felt like I had left India because it just didn't feel like you're in India anymore. The same thing when I visit Mahesh's intimate apparel factory outside Madras. So the technology, the scale that Sri Lankans have brought to other parts of the world, and as you said, the management expertise is amazing. Bangladesh has huge potential, huge strengths. There are lots of challenges there. And I just learned actually, and we started with Kumar talking about the tragedy, and we sat up for the Rana Plaza disaster. The owner of Rana Plaza was in the building when it collapsed. So he himself had no idea about the seriousness of these cracks where everybody else has vacated the building and he's still sitting in there. So in Bangladesh, the challenge, and I'm talking about locally owned factories, is they don't know how to sell. They really view themselves as, at PVH, I just learned this word after many years in this business, we call our shirt factories cutters. And I mean, organize everything for them, and they just cut and make. And that mentality is way, way behind what exists here.
Right.
The last country and the fourth one, Pakistan has obviously huge potential, but politically, you know, I mean, if you can't really get customers to visit, it's a bit of a challenge. So, you know, we have one factory, we are very focused, and I mean, cotton is amazing, you know, there's significant opportunity, but we don't control the rest of the environment in the country. So that's the perspective for the region. And the reason I'm not living and I'm based here is not because I don't love it here, it's just because they don't need me here. These guys are so good.
Yeah, it's kind of, I'm okay. It's kind of like the, you have a couple of kids, you focus on the one that needs the most of the help, right?
Yeah.
So that's an interesting way to think about it.
And one more thing is, Linda never invited me before. She kept sending the email to the wrong address, and she didn't realize, I mean.
Okay, well, we'll make sure that you're invited all the time now, so it's no problem. That's great. Let's talk, and Tula, you talked about the legislation that's creating this trade hub, and it's how that's going to really fundamentally put in place the changes needed to allow that to happen, to kind of give, when I listen to it, it's almost turning Sri Lanka into one free zone, like the country is a free trade zone. And that's the way it feels anyway. And it's a kind of an interesting opportunity for Sri Lanka. And I want to know is, and this is for all of you, and we'll work our way back down the panel again, you know, regional trade pacts are really changing the way that people do business and are rewriting the rules. I'd love to get all of your thoughts on, you know, what's going on, you know, with the competing regions, and are you worried about trade pacts? Are you excited about trade pacts? Will it actually liberalize trade? And is there particular ones that you'd like to see pass or not pass? I know that's a big, broad question, so.
Well, I'm not sure whether the so-called concept of free and fair trade is taking place in any part of the world. In fact, when the WTO decided that we all go for a free and fair trade in textile and agreement, a tinkering was permitted to support the developing countries by giving a bilateral arrangement, removing the trade between those two parties only. That was purely a deviation. But surprisingly, that deviation is the one that is taken the prominent place in this country. More than 500 odd free trade arrangements have been entered into between the entire world. So I really do not know whether this so-called free trade is going to take place, because there are a lot of geopolitical reasons that are attached to the arrangements that are being made. In this part of the world, well, Sri Lanka is having two specific FTAs with Pakistan and India. The Pakistan situation is actually, as Alok very correctly said, the right now things are moving, but there's a lot more to be done in order to harness the facilities that are available. As far as Sri Lanka is concerned, only few margin of preference are there. When it comes to FTA with India, well, we don't call it FTA for the textile and apparel, because we have a market access of 8 million pieces, and at the best, we might get $40 to $50 million turnover. And if it is shared between 2-3 companies, we don't think that we have business rationale to do that. So therefore, we have requested the Indian authority to see the possibilities of, at least on a bilateral basis, to do a sectoral liberalization. And the response was, rather than doing on a bilateral basis, they are willing to consider on SAARF basis, provided the Pakistan is offering MFN treatment to them. Now, that's a dream that they have been waiting for last 3.5 decades, and we really do not know. And we thought, at least if they do a MFN treatment on a bilateral basis, then we might be able to enter into the market. Because unless we do that, there is no possibility for us to synergize those things. Because right now, though there are 1.2 billion people in India, their total imports into country of apparel is only $500 million. Now we all know that all the retailers all the brands are trying to flock into that country, like in the case of China, but all are liable for the payment of tariffs that are applicable, except in the case of Bangladesh.
So either the Indians are only wearing 40 cents each in clothing, or we need to change the rules, right?
No, I think there's ethnic production that is taking place in this country.
No, yeah.
Right. So then on the other side of the coin is, while we don't have that treatment, India is already signing, the negotiating with EU and negotiating with Japan for free trade. And Pakistan is also doing it. And Bangladesh is actually being LDC is eligible for most the duty-free environment, except in the United States of America. So we are in fact now have come to a situation, if tariff is going to be the determining factor, we can't be in that business. So that is what we are trying to see the possibilities of, one, harnessing our own strengths and improving our efficiency in both productivity and delivery. And three, creating a new environment where other models of businesses can be undertaken this part. You imagine if someone were to penetrate into the Indian market by setting up a factory in India itself, I think it is going to be a disaster because state-to-state transfers have extremely high cost. Think in terms of Sri Lanka, manufacturing in Sri Lanka, export in India, you are in a better wicket. That situation has to be understood. So given that situation, we do believe, despite the fact that we do not have a level playing field, we are trying to cater to the niche market and create environment for undertaking new business models. That's what we are trying to do.
Thanks. Adina, do you have an opinion on that?
So if you analyze all the trade pacts, not just free trade agreements, but all trade pacts, NAFTA, CAFTA, other than for AGOA, where the fundamentals in the sub-Saharan region was not there, every region has benefited from the date of signing the agreement with substantial growth in export.
I agree.
So from a supply side, there is no argument that trade pacts have benefited that region. But if you shift